I want to thank everyone again for the support that they've shown to the channel, and just a reminder to everyone, we are recruiting for rather highly technical sales motions. So if you have a STEM background, maybe an analytical, economics, finance, and you've been thinking about making that change into tech sales, give us a shout through our website in the description below. We're happy to connect and see if it might be a fit for you. Now, I wanted to talk this week about imposter syndrome because it's a very real thing that happens in tech sales, and it happens for a multitude of reasons. Namely, especially if you're at a big company, maybe obviously if you're brand new in your career, you're in an SDR role, just being new to that environment, there's a lot to take in. But additionally, if you're at a large corporate environment and you're around peers where they have active leaderboards or things of that nature, it's easy to get dejected if maybe early on you're not hitting your stride, or maybe you have an off month or two in a row. It starts to compound and make you feel like you're not adequate at your job. Also, let's not forget, in sales, a lot of the times, especially if you're new in your career, you're calling to people who have 5, 10, 20 plus years of experience in the industry. So it's very natural to feel like you don't know what you're doing, you don't know what you're talking about. But I wanted to talk through kind of some of those major points and also how you can overcome that with more of an objective mindset and being more detached from the outcome itself. Again, imposter syndrome is the idea that you don't belong there, you don't belong with what you're doing, you're not qualified. And like if you're just starting in sales, like you're probably not. But at the same time, if you're around good leadership, you're looking into educating yourself through different online content, whatever it might be, you can quickly overcome that by becoming more competent about your product in general, reaching out to top performers in your company, understanding and taking advice from them in terms of how they got to where they are today. Those are things you can do to help you on that journey to overcome it. And early on, I would argue that maybe a little bit of that is not a bad thing. It's going to be a motivating force for you to continually up your game. And while you don't want it to be so in your mind that it actually takes away from your work, you're paranoid about not being number one or in the top 3 of the leaderboard or things like that. At the same time, it's a good motivating force if you're actually not doing well over an extended period of time to improve. Now, more so on the customer side, where you're calling into people with 5 to 10 years of experience, I mean, you're never going to know as much as a software engineer if you're selling a highly technical tool, or an HR manager if you're selling an HR SaaS platform, someone who's overseeing a global company's HR department. Like, you're never gonna have that amount of expertise. But again, it's not that you have to have that expertise to be successful in your role. It's just a matter of being very consultative, doing what you can on your end to learn obviously about your product, but up front, especially before you start calling, before you start emailing, ideally you have a lot of training beforehand to understand your product, the problems that those people are facing, and how your solution helps solve that problem very quickly, easily, whatever the value proposition is. Well, I don't want to get too carried away in a metaphor. Think of it almost even like a team sport situation. Let's even take like basketball. Like if you're 7 foot tall, you're not going to be the most nimble point guard, you're not going to be the best shooter, etc. But at the same time, you can still add value to a team. Again, when you're calling someone who is a global department leader or a big title, lots of experience, etc., you don't have to be the best person and know everything about the end product, etc. But if you can shed light on some of the deficiencies that they have, if you can fill gaps of their needs, if your tool provides maybe an area of something that's not their expertise, it automates or completely removes the need for them to do that themselves, that's still a value add. So when you're keeping the focus there, you're asking them engaging questions to understand their perspective on their job, what problems they have as a department, where they want to go as an organization. It's not a matter of being the best software engineer on the call. It's not a matter of knowing every little thing in the world. If you're able to consult, create interest, provide value, then as many of you know, as you go through the sales process, you can bring in solutions architect, sales engineers, other advisors that are more experts in the technology, in the field, etc. So in summary, again, especially if you're in an environment where there's leaderboards or around lots of peers, like imposter syndrome is a very natural thing to have, especially if you're earlier in your career. And a little bit of that is probably a good thing. Like, don't shy away from it. It's okay. It's a good motivating force for you to improve your game, and not only just like improve your game and make 1,000 dials and all this stuff, but take a moment and say, hey, there are people that are objectively performing better than me. Can I talk to them? Can I reach out to other top performers? Can I have candid conversations with my manager and ask myself and learn how to diagnose the deficiencies that I have and improve them? So embrace it. By extension, when we're calling into customers that have 5 to 10 plus years of experience and you're maybe fresh out of school or just new to sales. In the example of like selling highly complex software tools, you're not going to be able to write code better than the person you're calling to, but you don't have to. If you can learn enough about your product, if you can learn enough about the landscape of the industries you're selling into as a whole, and you can learn about the common challenges and how your product addresses that, you don't have to be an expert. You are coming in as a consultant, you are asking them engaging questions, and you're objectively just there to try and provide value. You're not selling, you don't have to convince anyone of anything crazy, but if they genuinely have a need and your product solves that, why wouldn't they want to talk to you? And as you build competency, as you build experience, making more calls, learning more about your product, even just talking to more people in general, you're going to build that subtle confidence that doesn't have to be this like macho man charisma, but just the objective, detached from the outcome type of mentality where you are calling people to genuinely see if there's something that they're trying to build or a place they're trying to go that your product can help with. And if they get mad at you, who cares, man? Like at the end of the day, if you're genuinely calling to provide value, like, hey, no need to get mad at me. And by extension, like if you call, they're all set, they don't need what you're selling, hey, move on to the next one. So again, I don't want to get too carried away here and talk about the mentality of sales as a whole and all of these different things. But if you're struggling with imposter syndrome, it's not a bad thing. Embrace it early on, let it motivate you, and then over time, it will go away as you build the competencies that you can only get through repetition and time. So if you're really enjoying it or know that you want the upside of sales, commit yourself to the craft. Keep pushing through, keep learning, and that imposter syndrome will fade over time and not even be relevant as you really hit the upswing of your career. So I hope that helped. Best of luck to everyone who's going through that, and we will see you next week.